how can the Commanders set up their rookie quarterback for the most success this season?
Well, Laura, you alluded to how successful Daniels was as a dual threat, both working from the pocket as a passer, but also on the ground. And I think for Cliff Kingsbury as the new offensive coordinator, tapping into that dual threat ability, but finding the right balance is going to be paramount for his success early on. I should start by saying, if this offense does not have a strong designed quarterback run component, you're not using Daniels' abilities. He was unbelievable as a runner. And many of the things we saw Cliff do with Kyler actually in Arizona, you could easily see him doing with Daniels, the use of draws, zone read, QB power. Daniels can do all of it, and his ability to do so will not only lead to explosive plays on the ground, but clarify coverages because defenses will have to play this run game differently. That said, you don't want to overdo it. And that's obviously true of any young quarterback. You don't want to subject them to unnecessary contact, but it's especially true of Daniels, given his diminutive size, honestly. So I think for Cliff and for this Commanders team as a whole, especially one, of course, haunted by what happened with Robert Griffin III years ago, finding that balance with the QB run game is going to be so important and honestly quite delicate.
Yeah, and I think protecting Daniels is going to be paramount here, not just in terms of the offensive line, but also in the way they structure this offense. Cliff Kingsbury, going back to his time with Kyler Murray in Arizona, they were empty. So nobody in the backfield at the 5th highest rate of any offense in football over that stretch. And you can do that with a great offensive line. You can do that with a very decisive, quick-thinking quarterback. Jayden Daniels is fast and he's fast-thinking, but he's going to take a lot of hits if you don't protect him. And so I wonder if this offense maybe has more 2 tight end sets with Ben Sinnott and Zach Ertz coming in. I wonder if they have maybe some more 6-man protections built in, maybe some 6 offensive linemen on the field, and maybe more motion. They were the most static offense in football during Kingsbury's time in Arizona. And that gives you an opportunity to make the defense communicate, adjust on the fly, maybe prevent you from getting those kind of, exotic rushes that NFL defensive coordinators love to hit young quarterbacks with.
Yeah, there's so many.
Okay. I think this is a pretty interesting question, and I feel like I've discussed this maybe a little bit before, but I believe that Cliff Kingsbury, first of all, he has obviously direct experience, especially working with Kyler Murray, what it's like to have a quarterback who not only can run and can extend plays and can even make running a foundational component, but then also what happens when he gets banged up. And he was with Kyler where he got banged up in multiple seasons, one where he obviously went down for the count, and the other one where I think he was just a little bit maybe more hobbled. And it completely derailed Cliff Kingsbury's trajectory as a head coach in the NFL. It completely destroyed it. If Kyler Murray stays healthy, Cliff is probably still the head coach with the Arizona Cardinals. And I think he's now learned and growing as an offensive mind. And I think naturally these young quarterbacks who can move, who are dual threats, their ability to run is more easily transferred over to the NFL. We see this again and again and again, right? Fast is fast. It just is. And you don't really need to know how to read defenses too much. And it becomes their security blanket. And that kind of gives them the ability then to have the rest of their game to kind of come and be developed. The good thing is that with Jayden is that he is also a great passer. And so I think rather than having him run and use it as his get out of jail free card or even design a whole offense around that dual threat, I really think moving forward, the reference point that we'll use to model things after will be similar to what Patrick Mahomes does now later in his career, where running is more of an afterthought. It's not designed. You're not going into these games thinking, oh God, at any moment, Mahomes is going to run for 110 yards. Like, that's just not the game plan. And we definitely talked about this the other day when we were comparing, when we were arguing who's the best dual threat quarterback. But with like a Lamar Jackson, you are like focused. This guy's going to look to run. We got to prepare for it. I don't think that's the path forward to a long career, a successful career, and an optimal career. I think it'll be like, listen, these quarterbacks are quick. They can extend plays. It can be their get out of jail free card, but it's not going to be the focus. We are absolutely going to use it when we need to, but we are absolutely going to do it in a way that minimizes injuries, because Jayden is not a big dude. He is not a fully grown man just yet. He's just not. That's the no slight at Jayden. It's just a fact. The guy's body is still maturing, so he could get banged up very easily, and you just don't want that. And I don't think Cliff Kingsbury wants that, because he's also thinking like, hey, I got to work my way back up in the good graces of the NFL. I need to keep Jayden Daniels upright. And also, not to mention, I need to show that I am an offensive mind and not just, hey, snap the ball and you go run and you go, you just figure it out, Jayden. So I think Cliff is going to look to be very innovative. I think it's going to be very similar to kind of like a hybrid between what we saw from Mahomes early on in his career, but then also kind of later on in his career where he's kind of shied away. Ever since Mahomes kind of really got banged up running, like him running has been very few and far between. Again, not to say that he doesn't take off and get 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-yard runs, right? Like he does those things, but it's just different. He definitely looked to run more earlier on his career. And I think that's what you want to set up Jayden Daniels to do. I think this idea of a dual threat quarterback, it just never really pans out how we want it to be. Even using Lamar Jackson, right, the most modern example right now, has dealt with legitimate injuries. And I just think that it's not to say that you take away a big part of their game, but I just think that it just becomes too problematic in the modern NFL that when you truly can run and take off, that ends up being something that you rely on so heavily that it really messes up the flow of the rest of the offense. And it just like, it can be demoralizing to defenses, and it can be such a saving grace for you. And I even made the argument that they needed to run more in the AFC Championship game, but it really can disrupt an offense if that is consistently what you're doing. And quite frankly, even other players don't like to play with it. Really, they don't. That's one of the arguments that people kind of use to pull down Lamar Jackson, is that receivers don't want to play with him, for those very reasons. Whether that's right or wrong, it is a legitimate thing that people talk about. And so I just think that it's one of those things that with Jayden, you want to make it almost like, and these are made up numbers, but like a 70-30, right? Let's develop his pocket presence. Let's use his legs to extend plays and to move around in the pocket and even that threat, but really like almost use your legs in a way that's like a 2005 stereotypical pocket white passer who like can like awkwardly take off for like 5, 6, 7 yards and like run out of bounds. Like that to me is the path forward for all of these quarterbacks, really, right? Is that what you do? Take off for your 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 yards, run out of bounds. Don't be a power runner, because that's what Lamar tried to do, and even Jalen Hurts, be a power runner, and their bodies have paid the consequences for it. And it's like, especially Jalen Hurts has. I think Jalen Hurts is probably a better comp because they're both smaller for Jayden. And so I just think, learn from the quarterbacks that have come before you. Even Mahomes kind of struggles with the hits. He gets banged up, although obviously he's so brilliant, and you have the benefit of Andy Reid that you can overcome those things. The Commanders don't necessarily have that just yet. Maybe one day they will, in terms of the roster and the talent and coaching moves. But I just think that don't lean too heavily on this whole idea of this dual threat. We get so obsessed with this idea of dual threat because it leads to such flashy, amazing plays. But when you're especially the build of Jayden Daniels, I just think it can go more wrong than good. And again, don't take that part of his game away from him, because that is what contributes to him being special, but it just shouldn't be the foundational part of who you are. And it's just too easy for a young quarterback to rely on that, and understandably so, right? I mean, it's just like, it's easier to trust your legs than your arm when you're playing in your first ever NFL game. The crowd's going crazy. You're still getting to know these receivers. You're still trying to figure out what the heck does an NFL defense look like. But the one thing that you do know is hey, I can run real fast, and if this opens up a little bit, like, I can just take off. And I think ultimately it covers up some issues. It could be a get out of jail free card, but ultimately it delays the progress and growth of a young quarterback. And I think Cliff Kingsbury will be aware of that, and he definitely doesn't want to now be new with Cliff and also a new head coach and Dan Quinn, and now have Jayden Daniels get banged up by week 6, 7 and being hobbled. I just don't think that that's what they're going to want to do. I think they're going to treat Jayden Daniels as a true high-level asset that they want to protect, that they want to grow, and that they want to emphasize his passing ability and not so much his legs. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think Jayden Daniels will be leaned on more for his dual threat ability and kind of leaned on more of the running early on in his career? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.